after the explanation is given of the covering of the consciousness, then the next question is asked, which jivas have slightly blossoming consciousness? Mukulita Chaitana. And then Babaji says, conditioned jivas within human bodies fall into three categories. Those with slightly blossoming consciousness, those with developed consciousness, and those with fully developed consciousness. Generally, the human race can be divided into 5 groups. Immoral atheists, moral atheists, moral theists, who have both morals and faith in Ishvara, those who are engaged in sadhana, and those who are engaged in bhava. So you have immoral atheists, and you have moral atheists, which is of course better than an immoral atheist, but not quite there yet. Then you have moral theists. And that means they have faith in God. And then you have those who are doing sadhana and those who are in bhava, who actually attain the goal, or the beginning stages of love. Those who are knowingly or unknowingly atheists are either immoral or moral atheists. It's interesting. You may be an atheist and don't even know it. When a moral person develops a little faith in Ishvara, Ishvara means Krishna, the controller, he's called a moral atheist, a moral theist. Those who develop interest in sadhana bhakti according to the tenets of Shastra are called sadhana bhaktas. And those who have developed some unalloyed love for Ishvara are called bhava bhaktas. Both immoral and moral atheists have slightly blossoming consciousness. Interesting. That means there's potential because they're human beings. Many, not many, but there are devotees now and that are very dedicated who were atheists at one point. Moral theists and sadhana bhaktas have developed consciousness, and bhava bhaktas have fully developed consciousness. Now I'll tell you an interesting story. The devotees were on a morning walk in London, in one of those famous parks, like Regent's Park. Perhaps it was Regent's Park, and there were some hippies lying in the park, because in those days the hippie movement was very popular, so now the hippies would just live in parks. They didn't have homes. So they were sleeping either in the bench or the ground in their sleeping bags, and Prabhupada said, even these people can be saved or can become, what did he say? Something like that. You can be saved by the mercy of Mahaprabhu. Or can become qualified. Something like that. And so the devotee thought about it, and he was thinking, well, what enables one person to take Krishna consciousness but not another? Oh, no, Prabhupada said, by good fortune, these people can take up Krishna consciousness. So then the devotee thought, what is that good fortune? How do you get good fortune? And I think everybody has that question, why somebody takes it, somebody doesn't. Why we take it, why our friends or relatives didn't. So the devotee asked Prabhupada, said, you said that they can get it by good fortune, so what is that good fortune? And one thing that we would think is that, well, the good fortune is that they've done something pious in their last life, or they've done some bhakti in their last life. Because generally that's how we understand good fortune. It's called sukriti. So you've had some connection with bhakti. Maybe you've served a Vaishnava, maybe you've taken prasadam, maybe you've had connection with devotional literature. It's some connection with bhakti, so we'd call that bhakti sukriti. And so because one has some connection with bhakti in the past, one's able to take it up. Or when one's pious credits, one's sukriti hits a point, then one can take up bhakti, because if one's too sinful, they won't have the determination to do devotional service. And Krishna says that in the Gita, Yesham Tontagata Papam. You have to be free from sin. At least sufficiently free from sin, otherwise if one's too sinful, they won't have the determination to do bhakti. And then you have Bhagavatam, it says that these cowherd boys who got to associate with Krishna, after many, many lifetimes of pious activities, they became qualified. So there's this understanding, philosophical understanding, that it requires a certain amount of sukriti or piety before one can take the devotional service. So Prabhupada's saying good fortune. By good fortune, even these people can take up Krishna consciousness. And the devotee was thinking, well, how does somebody take it up, somebody doesn't, and what is the good fortune? So we asked Prabhupada, so what do you mean by good fortune? Or how do they get good fortune? And Prabhupada said, we are their good fortune. And so what did Prabhupada mean? Well, if you go back to the philosophical point that you have to engage in sukriti before you can surrender to Krishna, at least to have some determination to take up some kind of bhajana kriya, some kind of regulated bhakti, you have to have some sukriti. But Prabhupada's point was, we will take people, perhaps who have little or no sukriti, we will engage them in devotional service. That way they get the sukriti. So we'll give them prasadam, or they'll come to a festival, they'll see the deities, they'll hear the holy name, they'll get a book, they'll get some sangha with the devotees. So all of this is bhakti sukriti, it builds up. So in our outreach of Krishna consciousness, we are actually creating sukriti for people, or sometimes people will come and we'll engage them in devotional service. And it's a really nice story, just to illustrate this point. It's kind of funny. There was a man, or there is a man, but I haven't been to San Diego, but he was in San Diego helping us when I was there in the 80s, early 90s. And he had skills in advertising, and he was just a smart guy, and he was well connected, so he liked devotees, and some of the devotees befriended him and they engaged him, used his talent. So he really liked what we were doing, so he was willing to be consulted and sometimes even do full advertising for us, just as a service. But if you would meet him and say Hare Krishna, or you'd meet him and say Hare Bol, he would say, "Hi, how are you doing?" He would never say Hare Bol, he would never say Hare Krishna. And sometimes, he would go to the temple, he would be there during kirtan. I didn't notice if he chanted in the kirtan or not. But this would go on for years, you see. Hare Krishna, so-and-so, and he would say, "Hello, hi, good morning, good afternoon." But he liked doing service, and he did service. So, I forget the exact details, but there was some situation, maybe we were doing some big project, and it was a very ecstatic project, and he was very involved in it, because he was talented, and he did a lot of things, a lot of work in communications, public relations. He helped us. He did a lot of cutting edge things, and so something that he did was very rewarding to him, and the results were quite good, maybe more than expected, and he was very ecstatic. So One day. He called up the temple president. The temple president wasn't there, but he got his voicemail, and he left a message on his voicemail. And he said, I just want to tell you something. Haribol. That was the first time. That was the first time he said Haribol. So the point is, service, service, service. At a certain point, it reaches a threshold that a person's been engaged, and then they can become more serious, then they can actually take up the practices of bhakti. So Prabhupada here is saying, we are their good fortune. Maybe these people have not done any bhakti in their past life, but somehow or other we can convince them to do something, to come to a program, to hear the holy name, to take prasadam, whatever it is, take a book. If we can convince them, then they've engaged unknowingly in devotional service. And if we can continue to engage such people, at a certain point, the desire to actually do some kind of sadhana or some regular service develops. So that's interesting, that how much of a person's spiritual life is in one sense dependent on another devotee or dependent on how we engage them. There's another nice story. I have a godbrother, and he was very expert at bringing people to Krishna consciousness, and he would do a couple of things. He told me. He said sometimes he would find out what somebody liked to do, and even if the temple didn't require that service, he would create a situation so that service would be made available. In other words, let's say someone is a painter, and we don't need anything painted. But this devotee would figure, if I give this person a job of painting or a service of painting that will take days and days and days, then he's going to be coming to the temple if he has the time. And there's one incident, this person did have the time, so he was coming to the temple every day and he was painting. So he was at the temple all day, so naturally Kirtan is there, Prasadam is there, Sangha is there. So every day he's coming, he's with the devotees. So he's becoming Krishna conscious, and he's becoming purified, and he became a devotee. So this devotee who was helping him, bringing him to Krishna consciousness, just created that service. It wasn't needed, but he created it for this devotee so that this devotee would be in the association of other devotees. He would have service. So it worked. There's another example. What this devotee would do is he would do programs in people's homes or little festivals or whatever, programs to give Krishna consciousness. And sometimes he would just organize a program to have a reason to invite somebody to the program. In other words, if there weren't people that he was trying to bring to Krishna consciousness, he wouldn't have organized a program, for example, in someone's home. But it was kind of like an excuse. He needed some reason because he couldn't just continually call these people and say, come over to my apartment and we'll talk. There had to be some program, something. And it had to be something that they would like, and it had to be something with prasadam. So this devotee told me, he said a lot of times he would organize a program not for the general public, but just to have a program because there were one or two people that he was bringing to Krishna consciousness, and he knew these kinds of programs would help them. Interesting. And one devotee told me that her spiritual master, Radhanath Swami, was giving her some advice on how to bring people to Krishna consciousness, and he was saying something similar. He said, you don't need a reason to have programs, just have a lot of programs. You don't need a reason to have festivals. One time Prabhupada said, in Krishna consciousness there should be a festival every day. One time he said every day is a festival. Another time he said there should be a festival every day. In other words, it should be, you don't need a reason to have a festival. You can just decide, we're going to have a festival, like Kirtan Mela. They just had a Kirtan Mela here in Mumbai. So it wasn't any special holiday. It was that we're going to have a Kirtan Mela. So we had it, where you can have a a Sangha festival or an appreciation festival. You can create a festival. We're going to have a festival and just appreciate devotees. We're going to have kirtan and prasadam and just talk nicely about devotees. It's an opportunity to bring people together. And if you know anybody that has talents or abilities and you engage them in service, that service really can make a huge difference in their Krishna consciousness. Huge difference. And people have told me that I've engaged. And they said that when I engaged them and they were doing regular service, it made a huge difference in their spiritual life. I mean, these were people that had the time and they had the specific talents that were required for the specific services I needed. And so they became very much absorbed, that instead of having free time just to waste away, what normally would be wasted away was now engaged in Krishna consciousness. And they would write me and said that was actually what brought me to Krishna consciousness. So, or connected me more. So, I mean, that's true for us, and it's true for anybody who we can engage in any service that you have or any service that you can create. Temples have a lot of service, and you can bring people to the temple. Even they don't have service, you can create service. You can go to the temple, you just go there, you'll find things. I guarantee, any temple you go to, go in the temple room and put your finger on the paintings, on the top of the frames or anywhere on the paintings, and see if they're dirty. Most temples are going to be dirty. So there's a service anybody could do, is dust off the paintings or wash off the paintings. Or and generally in temples they clean the floors, but they don't clean things above the floor often. And if you just go around, you'll see that they're dirty. So just a little thing like that, but it's service, and somebody can do it. And all that service is just Krishna's mercy, because Krishna doesn't need the service. So the service is for us. In fact, there have been occasions in which Prabhupada would say something like, the goal is to sit down and chant Hare Krishna 24 hours a day. But I give you these projects, I give you this service to engage you, because you want to be engaged, you need to be engaged, you're active. So one aspect of service, an interesting aspect of service, is that service is there just to occupy time that would otherwise be wasted in Maya or be wasted in sense gratification. So there was one time Prabhupada said, it's not even a question of the service, it's just do it. So we have to look at service in two ways. One way, of course, is how the service is practical, functional in accomplishing goals which will help bring more people to Krishna consciousness. So we have this mission of giving Krishna, of spreading it. And so all services in some way are directly related or indirectly related to bringing people to Krishna consciousness. So that's often how we think of our services. How can I expand it, which means how can I bring more people in? And a devotee should think that way, because that's the heart of a devotee, is how to give Krishna. But the other side of the service is it's for us, to keep us engaged, to keep us inspired, to keep us motivated. Just like when Srila Bhaktisiddhanta asked Prabhupada to preach in the English language, and specifically in America or the West, he said, this preaching will not only be good for the people you preach to, it'll be good for you also. So that's the benefit of engaging in Krishna consciousness. You find in Bhagavatam, you say you need a qualified speaker and you need a qualified audience, a qualified people to hear, people who want to hear in advance. And then Bhagavatam says, and for the speaker and the hearer, everyone becomes purified. It's good for the speaker, it's good for the listener, because it's transcendental sound, it's Krishna Katha, so everybody benefits. So we need to consider how service is also something that we need, it's important for us. And therefore, oftentimes what devotees will do is they'll consider service that they find would be absorbing for them or engaging or inspiring. Because it's important to be inspired in Krishna consciousness. And you might say, well, I should just be pure. I should just do whatever Krishna wants. That's there also, because there are a lot of things that our spiritual master will want or Prabhupada will want that may not be our cup of tea, so to speak, but they have to be done. But at the same time, there are services for which we will be more inspired and we can do, and we'll have the inclinations to do them, we'll have the abilities. So that's also good, and it's also something to look at, because it can be very purifying, because it can be more absorbing. And then Prabhupada said there's a connection between service and sadhana, because if somebody is happy and inspired in service, they'll tend to be more inspired in their sadhana, because they'll realize that their sadhana inspires their service. So there's this connection of empowering service through sadhana. If you don't really have any inspiring service, well, I'll give you an example. That at least when I distributed books in America, often it was very, very difficult. We were distributing books in places where people were rushing, they didn't have time, or the average person was not that interested. I mean, there are other places, if you go to a college or maybe a concert, there's younger people, they would tend to be more interested. But a lot of times it'd be in airports, and at certain times of the day in airports it would be business people, and the business people were older. By older, I mean they were over 30. And at least when we were younger and we were spreading Krishna consciousness, it's extremely rare that anybody, even in their late 20s, took interest. It was all young people. So for us to meet a businessman in his 30s was almost like there's no chance that this person's going to be interested. But we would try, and sometimes they would take. But it was difficult. It was really difficult. And Prabhupada was pushing us, and we wanted to expand it. So you'd see this very intense sadhana going on in temples among the book distributors, because the service they had was difficult. And so they understood that their strength, their power, was coming from their sadhana. So there was this connection, very, very obvious connection between sadhana and service, sadhana being the empowerment. So they would chant very sincerely, very prayerfully, praying to be empowered to do this service. Now, something which is interesting in this regards is that I had a godbrother, and he asked Prabhupada if he could create a manual to train book distributors. And Prabhupada he wasn't entirely against it, but he wasn't entirely for it. And his reasoning was that what enables us or empowers us is our inspiration to serve. So inspiration to serve is very important. And he said that if you do too much detailed training, then it can, as we say in America, you're cramping my style. In other words, if I'm going to do something and you're over my shoulder and you say, no, do it this way, don't do it this way. And you want to train me in the minute details of every nuance of that activity, then I may lose my spontaneity, my creativity, my inspiration to do it, because now I'm being kind of put in a corner as to how it has to happen. So when they asked Prabhupada about this training program, he said it's a little artificial, and then he said every man is his own genius. So what Prabhupada meant was that through inspiration comes intelligence, and then one gets his genius or connects with his creativity, and one begins to expand his service often beyond what one initially thought one could do. So Prabhupada based his training on sadhana, on spiritual practice, on purity, and he used to say purity is a force. I don't think he created that statement. I think it came from somewhere else, but he would say it often. So in other words, the force is not the mechanical training of how to do an activity, although that may be required, But here we see that Prabhupada didn't want that to go too far, because the real key to success was the inspiration that one got through one's following of principles. So Prabhupada always stressed, follow the principles, because the principles are the foundation of purity. And purity is the force, it's the inspiration. And that's where the intelligence comes, because Krishna is guiding, and he's guiding according to inspiration and desire. So you see there's this connection, very intimate connection between sadhana bhakti, the practices which create the purity, and then the creativity of the devotee and the inspiration of the devotee in service. But you also see it works the other way around. And Prabhupada said this in a letter. Then he told his managers, he said, what you have to do is find service that devotees like, they're happy with, and then push them. Like Leslie likes to organize programs for people, and Pallavi likes to assist me in doing a lot of administrative things to she keeps you notified of programs, she sends out the newsletter, I tell her to do other things. So we all have different natures. So Prabhupada said to the managers, he said, find something the devotees like to do that they're very satisfied in doing. And I'll give you an example. It's kind of funny. It's actually it's really funny. But it's very telling. There's a devotee, he's an actor, and he acted in Prabhupada's days, and Prabhupada encouraged the acting. And at one point Prabhupada said, these dramas are actually better than my books, because they bring the books alive, and you actually experience the stories and the philosophy in a deeper way. So he was an actor in this acting troupe, and Prabhupada actually had this acting troupe go around to different places, and he paid for them. Prabhupada really liked it and wanted it. But after Prabhupada left, the funding and the energy began to diminish, because when Prabhupada was there, he was the energy behind this group. And after Prabhupada left, a lot of programs weren't maintained because it's just Prabhupada, but he emphasized those programs. Do you want me to take the video off because it's breaking up? I can take the video off if you think that's better. I think there's advantages to the video, but in helping you focus. But just let me know if you want the video off. So, where were we? We were somewhere. No, I'm forgetting where we were. So, it's fine for me. Okay. So now, Leslie, since it's fine for you, what was I just talking about? I went total blank. I was talking about service and inspiration, and how sadhana inspires service, but service also inspires sadhana. And so Prabhupada would tell his managers, help people find service. Oh yeah, the dramas. So yeah, find service they like to do. So this devotee, dramas, he really liked to do dramas. But as I was saying, after Prabhupada left, gradually the funding and the emphasis wasn't there. So he had less and less, he would try to organize dramas locally, but less and less opportunities for whatever reason. So one day I was in a park near the temple where he lived, where I was staying also. And in the park they have an amphitheater, and it was a Shakespeare festival. So my wife, it was in the evening, we were chanting our rounds, and it was an amphitheater, and this amphitheater had natural amplification, the way the amphitheaters are made. The sound naturally carries, and this play was going on, and you could hear Shakespeare. To be or not to be, that is the question. You could hear. And all of a sudden we hear a voice, and we say, that sounds like so-and-so. And we're listening. That is so-and-so. So so-and-so means that devotee. that devotee that traveled the world under Prabhupada's direction doing dramas. And so I turned to my wife and I said, nature is so strong that often if there's no facility to do it for Krishna, you just have to do it anyway. It's just your nature. You can't stop. It's like musicians, if there was a ban on chanting Hare Krishna, they'd chant something, right? They'd sing something. So Prabhupada said, find a service that you like to do, which means obviously it's in accordance with your nature, and then do it. And then Prabhupada told the managers, and he said, and then push them. So let's say, like Leslie, she likes to organize programs, bring people into Krishna consciousness. So I could push her and say, okay, now, in this next year, we want to try to do, you have a program on Friday night, but why don't you do a program on Wednesday night in another location? So we try to expand. Or why don't you, every 3 months have a special Saturday program or Friday night people come to the temple, they stay overnight, and they spend the whole day and you engage them in service and they have extra classes. Or, So, that idea. So Prabhupada said, push, find what people like to do and then push them, do more. And then he said, when the devotee is inspired in their service, he said they'll be inspired in their sadhana. It'll automatically energize their sadhana. When you're inspired, you get up, you're active. When you're not inspired, you tend to get tired and miserable and depressed. Right? Isn't it? So, anyway, that's the idea. So there's this, we originally began saying, you engage people in bhakti becomes bhakti sukriti, and by that engagement, it comes to this point of where they can be steady in devotional service. So that it still applies. It still continues. So being engaged in service is very, very important to inspire our sadhana, and our sadhana is the basis to inspire our service. So they work together. Interesting. So, little ISKCON history there for you. Let's continue reading. Those who develop interest in sadhana bhakti according to the tenets of Shastra are called sadhana bhaktas. And those who have developed some unalloyed love for Ishvara are called bhava bhaktas. Both immoral and moral atheists have slightly blossoming consciousness. It means there's hope for them. Moral atheists and sadhana bhaktas have developed consciousness, and the bhava bhaktas have totally developed consciousness. So, sometimes you have this word higher consciousness. So what is higher consciousness? So we say Krishna consciousness, that's God consciousness, that's higher consciousness. Lower consciousness is further you are away from that consciousness. Pretty simple, right? Brajanath asks, how long do the bhava bhaktas stay bound in Maya? Interesting. So he's saying, when you come to the stage of bhava, in other words, from that stage, how long does it come till you're completely purified? Prema. Because on the stage of bhava means emotion. Sometimes bhava is defined or described as ecstasy. But it's also explained that on the stage of bhava, it's the beginning stage of love, of pure love. But it's not pure yet. So there's still some impurity that has to be removed. And it's still possible to fall down from that platform. But on the stage of prema, all impurities are removed, one cannot fall down. So he's asking how long, basically, as far as I can understand, he's asking how long from the stage of bhava to get to prema. What's required, how long does it take, what's going on here? Brajanath returned home anticipating woe. He said, I will answer that question when I explain the 7th shloka of Dasamula. Dasamula is a book Bhaktivinoda Thakur wrote. Now it is quite late. So he's not going to answer the question yet. So now you can ask a question if you like. Sushma says, I have seen every time I pray to Prabhupada and go for a book distribution, we have a good day. Yes. Okay, that's an important point. Very important point. I think, I don't know if I told this story, but you find an interesting thing you find in Bhagavatam is you'll find that sometimes the demigods and the demons, they're always, not always, but often there's a struggle between them. The demons, the asuras are trying to take over the position of the demigods. Demigods are trying to maintain their position. And of course the demigods understand if the asuras become powerful, that's going to be bad for them and the world. So there was one instance in which the demigods, well, there's a couple instances where the demigods became very powerful and demons wanted to know, one instance the demons became powerful because the demigods had offended their guru and the demons were worshipping their guru. So they were getting the Shakti of their guru, the power of their guru. And this also happened on other occasions where you'd see that the demigods, the demons are becoming very, very powerful. So how are they becoming powerful? It's because they're worshipping their guru, they're honoring their guru, they're becoming, therefore, more and more powerful than the demigods because they're worshipping their guru more than the demigods are worshipping their guru. So it's an interesting phenomena that through the worship of the spiritual master, it's like you've plugged in an appliance to the outlet. And so now you're getting power, which is their power. Krishna Shakti Vina Nahi Tara Parvartana. Without Krishna Shakti, you cannot give Krishna or spread Krishna consciousness. So now you're getting power. So oftentimes when probably you're going to ask the question, and I'll just continue for a while before getting to your question. Oftentimes, you'll see a devotee before they give class, they're praying very deeply to their spiritual master, and what are their in their heart, they're praying to be an instrument to get the Shakti, or to be transparent, to channel in some way what their guru would like them to say. So that's an important aspect of Krishna consciousness in terms of empowering our own service, our prayer to Prabhupada, our connection, mercy of the Guru. How do you get the mercy? Well, one of the ways is you pray. Another way is you glorify. You glorify Prabhupada, you pray to Prabhupada, you focus on him, you see your independence, you realize your dependence. And so I'm just emphasizing what we learn from the Bhagavatam is that on many, many occasions the demons were becoming more powerful than the demigods because of their worship of their Guru. They were getting his Shakti. So that's just emphasizing what Shushma said. So Pallavi, you can ask your question. I'm just going to look at the next chapter, and we're going to go to, okay. So Pallavi's asking an unrelated question, but maybe we can find a way to relate it to the topic. But an unrelated question is okay. How to disconnect the mind from experiencing pain? I feel the biggest hurdle is focusing on japa is pain. You're talking about mental, emotional pain? You're talking about physical pain. Anyway, we can address either one. But if it's physical pain, then it depends how intense it is. But if it's just pain of life, then if physical pain, and then how do you keep from focus on it? You take painkillers, you take aspirin until you're very elevated. Probably it's going to be extremely difficult to not focus on it. If it hits a certain intensity of pain, it may not be possible in your state now to not focus on it. So then the solution is do something to get rid of the pain, because that pain now is becoming an impediment to your bhakti. If the pain is not so intense, or if it's just a kind of depression or emotional problem, then by being more absorbed in hearing the sound, being more absorbed in thinking of Krishna, in at least contemplating that Krishna is there in his name, and through that kind of absorption, one can actually lose the focus on the physical dimension, which includes the mind and the body. In other words, just like in any materially speaking, the same thing happens. If you're very focused on something, some thought, somebody, especially if it's pleasing, if it's inspiring, then it takes you away from where it takes you away from your physical situation, and you're now where your mind is absorbed. And so when you do that, then sometimes you can just forget. You can actually forget where you are for a moment or a longer moment. And if you're very absorbed in japa, sometimes that happens, where you actually just kind of lose a little bit of contact with your physical situation, and you're there with Krishna in a more advanced stage of Krishna consciousness. That what we learn from the acharyas is that when a pure devotee is chanting, I mean pure elevated devotee, when he's chanting, he's actually in Krishna's pastimes. He's participating in the pastimes. So obviously, he's not within this physical dimension. But as devotees who are practicing Krishna consciousness, the seeds of that are possible. The seeds of that can be planted in our chanting. So we may not be absorbed in samadhi, which means constantly, but we can become absorbed a little bit in some realization of Krishna Lila, or some realization that Krishna is there. And the more we can have that absorption, then the less we identify, or the less we even realize our physical situation. And of course, that's the ultimate goal, to be completely absorbed in Krishna. So that conversely, the biggest challenge or biggest obstacle, or the symptom of the obstacle and the problem is that we're very absorbed on the physical plane, which means the body and the mind. So body means uncomfortable, the body means painful, and the mind means thinking of things which have absolutely nothing to do with japa, nothing to do with the holy name, nothing to do with Krishna consciousness. So that means it's an absorption completely on the physical plane. And that's how you know you're not chanting well, because you're just completely absorbed right here. Not that you shouldn't be absorbed in the present, because I tell devotees often, be present when you chant, but I don't mean be present to the experiences of your body or the experience of your mind. I mean be present to the experience that you're having of the holy name, and to that relationship. So, as I said, on a higher stage of Krishna consciousness, one may actually transcend the pain. And Prabhupada said that. He actually said that if you injure yourself and you chant the holy name, you're absorbed, you won't experience the pain as much. But that requires a more elevated stage of devotional service. But I would say if on a physical level the pain is so intense that it's impossible or extremely difficult to focus, then you have to do something to reduce the pain, which means urgently, strenuously make an effort to deal with the physical problem, or take some kind of medication that will relieve the pain to the degree that at least you can focus on your chanting and it won't make you sleepy or intoxicate you. That's what I would suggest. Pallavi, if you come to Jagannath Puri and you go to the Madhusudan Health Clinic, he'll get rid of the pain for you. There's so many devotees go to this clinic, and they get helped with problems that nobody else could help them with. So get on the next plane to Jagannath Puri. Actually, I'll be in Jagannath Puri on March 7th, so we can see you there, and then I can take you right to the Madhusudan Healing Clinic. I was there, and he was helping a lot of devotees, and devotees who were walking with canes said, I don't need a cane anymore after a couple weeks. So, anyway, it's not a hopeless case. But until then, or until you find something useful, yes, just relieving the pain. There's a funny story in need to increase Krishna prema, but you just don't get it like that. It's gradual, yeah, but of course. Yeah, walking can help. Moving the body around just so you're comfortable. And I'll tell you a story. It was a godbrother of mine. We were in Vrindavan, he was visiting. And they were doing parikramas in Vrindavan, so the tradition of parikrama is to go barefoot. That's just a tradition, and it's also said that because it's a tradition, and we as practicing devotees are representing Westerners practicing this tradition, that we should also follow the tradition, because it helps people if they respect us, not because we want to be respected, but if they respect us, they gain faith in what our movement's doing, they gain faith in what we're teaching, and so that faith is helpful for their spiritual life. So then often we're requested, well, when you go on parikrama, don't wear shoes. So we're doing these parikramas around Vrindavan every day, and then one of my godbrothers, one day he's wearing shoes. And I said, why are you wearing shoes? He said, because there's so many rocks and pebbles and thorns on the parikrama mark, the whole time I'm chanting, I'm just thinking about my feet. And where am I going to step and how much this hurts. Whereas if I wear shoes, then I can focus on the holy name. So I thought that was valid. Because the point is to be absorbed in Krishna. I mean, the ultimate goal is not to do a parikrama without shoes. The ultimate goal is to be absorbed in Krishna. So then, Pallavi, when I get Krishna prema, I'll call you up and give you a drop. Until then, you're going to have to do the work. Of course, everything depends on mercy of Guru and Krishna, but it also depends on our effort. Anyway, it's there. Krishna prema is there. It's there. Anybody can get it if they want it. It's there, but you have to do something to get it. But this question brings up a very important point, because in my work with the holy name and in my teaching of the holy name, I realized that a symptom of bad japa, generally, I mean, I don't want to make absolutes, I said generally, the more I'm connected with what is going on in my life, even connected with what's going on in my life in bhakti, means the practical things of service that I have, all those connections generally are symptoms that I'm not absorbed in chanting. I'm more absorbed on the physical plane, because the service is also taking place on the physical plane. So I could be thinking while I'm chanting about my service. So I'm absorbed in my service, but I'm not absorbed in hearing the holy name. I'm not absorbed in thinking of Krishna, or absorbed in experiencing the holy name, appreciating the holy name. But when I make the effort to be absorbed in hearing, absorbed in what does the holy name mean, what are the moods, then I'll tend to disconnect a little bit from my environment, from my surroundings. And often devotees, and I help devotees do this, I encourage them to see this as a kind of a benchmark of when your japa's hitting a threshold of what I would call good japa. You're tending to lose a little bit of contact with the physical dimension. And devotees who've done this well have told me, they said, sometimes I'll be chanting, and I actually think I've been chanting for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and I'll look at my watch, and it's an hour or an hour and a half. Because it's kind of like they've entered a different dimension, and in that dimension, they were very absorbed in chanting, and they were very absorbed in hearing, and that's all that was really going on. So they were just absorbed in Krishna and the relationship, and it's just like, if you're with somebody and you're having a good time, they say time flies. So that's what was happening. They were very absorbed in chanting, and they were absorbed in the experience they were getting, and they just lost touch with time. They lost touch with some degree of touch with the physical reality, the so-called reality that they're normally in. And so it may be, Pallavi, that the pain is an impetus to become more absorbed in the name, in hearing. But if I were in your situation, I would also pray to Krishna to guide me to some solution. That's a good solution, Jagannath Puri, if you come to India. There's a friend of mine just went to an Ayurvedic clinic in Kerala, and he said it was one of the most amazing places. He had eczema, if that's how you pronounce it, eczema, and they cured it, and they're doing all kinds of amazing therapies. So what I think is important also, and this is something I've noticed, is that most of us are not really Krishna conscious enough to excel in Krishna consciousness if we're physically challenged. If the physical challenges become impediments for most of us, it slows us down, it absorbs us, it minimizes the service we can do, it affects our minds. So understanding that, my recommendation, and I do this also, is that we need to focus more, put more energy into taking care of ourselves. I know a lot of devotees physically may not be that healthy, but they're not doing anything really to address that. They don't have a lot of energy, they may sleep too much, they may be handicapped by some disease, and it restricts their service, and it definitely affects their minds. It's only when you're very advanced won't it affect your mind. Like Prabhupada had diabetes, and he'd eat sugar, and he didn't even take insulin. It was just completely transcendental. But for most people, it's very debilitating. So, or physical pain, or just lack of energy. So lack of energy means what? You're going to sleep more. It means also, it takes a lot of energy to focus. I'm sure you've all noticed that when you're chanting japa. Sometimes we don't even have the energy to focus. We just get distracted because it takes mental energy to overcome these kinds of distractions. And if we don't have the physical energy, often we just kind of give up. So unless one is very, very transcendental and very elevated, one will be affected by the body, and therefore it's important to understand that if I neglect my health, and by neglect what I mean is not taking positive actions to be healthy. So that means every time you're eating foods which are not healthy. You're avoiding taking the trouble to prepare foods that are healthy. You're not exercising properly. All these things, in some way, it's going to affect your bhakti because it's going to weaken your energy levels. It's going to cause you to age sooner, which is going to limit your service because now you'll have less energy, and it's going to cause you to have to put more attention later on in taking care of your ill health. So rather than put attention taking care of ill health, put attention taking care of health so you don't get ill. That's proactive, and it produces a better result. This is my experience. Now, Prabhupada was not the kind of person that would lay out a whole health regime for his devotees. But he did on several occasions emphasize when he saw or he felt that there was some lack of devotees taking care of themselves, that he noticed it. On several occasions, when devotees were coughing, he actually stopped his class and he said, "Why is everybody coughing? Don't you have warm clothes?" And then he would tell the managers, he would say, "Make sure they have warm clothes." And then he would tell the story of Sanatana Goswami, and Sanatana Goswami, he felt so useless, he wanted to commit suicide, and Mahaprabhu said, "You can't, because your body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to me, and so you don't have a right to kill yourself." So then Prabhupada explained that. He said, he related it to our situation. And he said, well, your body doesn't belong to you, so you have to take care of it. It's Krishna's body. So, we might think, well, taking care of my body is a waste of time, and I'd rather just neglect it in the name of bhakti. And then I can just continue doing more service. And Prabhupada said, no, but it's your service to maintain it, to keep it healthy. So neglecting our health is really a symptom of ignorance. It's only a symptom it's only not a symptom of ignorance if you can transcend it. So you think, well, why should I waste time maintaining myself? Because even if I'm ill, it doesn't affect me. Now Prabhupada, he took a walk every day, and he took 2 massages every day. And that's how he maintained that was his exercise program. So he also set an example of maintaining his health. Because, obviously it's a machine and you need it. So, okay. Now Leslie asked an interesting question. Tattoos. What did Prabhupada say about tattoos? There are some Vaishnava traditions that tattoo their body. In a Nectar of Devotion, you can read about that. And generally the tattoos, there's an initiation. I don't know if you know this, there's an initiation in some sampradayas. And when you get initiated, you actually get tattooed with a hot iron. Something like that. Right? Tattoo the name of Radha or Krishna or something. So there is a tradition of tattoos. But in Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, the tattoo is generally, you take some tilak and you have a stamp, it says Radha. Sometimes you'll see these sadhus and they'll stamp their body, their forehead, Radha, something like that, or a stamp. That is more of the tradition of tattoos that I'm aware of. Now in Hinduism you find a lot of, like I've seen, especially amongst girls, maybe it's considered auspicious, they'll have an Om on their wrist or on their arm, you'll see an Om. But as far as Prabhupada speaking about tattoos, I've never heard him say anything. So, but, I mean, indirectly, Prabhupada had said, a woman's nature, she likes to decorate herself. So he never faulted women for wanting to decorate their bodies. He just observed that that's their nature. Generally, I would say tattoos for a man, if it has some spiritual significance, that, Krishna's Nrsingadeva is protecting me, he's on my body. There may be some validity to that. The inspiration of Shastra says a devotee marks their body with the symbols of Vishnu. So one may think, well, I'll just mark it with a tattoo rather than tilak, and because it will be permanent. Some devotees actually have tilak, even here, as tattoos. At least one devotee does. But what's interesting about your question is that you're asking a question that Prabhupada didn't directly address. But then we have to see what he did address. And we have to understand principles. And then we have to come to some conclusions. Now, one thing that I would say in this regard, and it brings up another point which probably you didn't realize, but at least for me it brings up an issue of, let's say a devotee has tattoos, or let's say a devotee has a lot of tattoos. And let's say you're thinking this is just vanity. They just want people to think, wow, you're the coolest dude in town because of your tattoos. Or you're the coolest dudette in town. And so you might be looking at a devotee and thinking, this devotee is ostentatious. And this is not proper, and this is not Krishna conscious. And maybe you even discuss this with other devotees, or maybe it just becomes a concern for you. And actually this tattoo issue, for some people, is a concern because they don't feel that Prabhupada would be pleased with it. Other people, godbrothers even, have many tattoos over their body, and they see it from a spiritual perspective. As I said, the branding of the body with the names or symbols of the Lord. So one thing I think is important for all of us to understand is that oftentimes when there's a problem, or what is perceived as a problem, or could be a problem, oftentimes the situation is that whatever the problem is, the way we address it in terms of our critique of it, or even being upset about it, and then how we deal with it, it often creates an atmosphere which is very, very negative. And then the way we're dealing with the problem, if it even is a problem, becomes more, to me, a problem than the problem we're dealing with. And because a lot of times I've seen in our movement that people are addressing problems which ultimately they don't really matter. Whether it goes on or not, it's not really going to make a whole lot of difference. Whether, for example, devotees have tattoos or not, it's really not going to influence the future of the Krishna consciousness movement. Whether men wear earrings or not in the Hare Krishna movement probably is not going to make a huge difference. I mean, in some circles, in some preaching, it might. Maybe a devotee who has the earrings might decide, well, I won't wear that there because it will distract. But in general, there are things that become controversial or become concerns because people believe Prabhupada wouldn't be pleased or wouldn't want it, but that really, in the ultimate issue, are not that big, and the ultimate issue, you don't really know what Prabhupada would say about it. And the ultimate issue, if the person does it, there's not a whole lot of difference between them not doing it. It doesn't make that much, it doesn't have a negative effect. Contrarily, sometimes it may have a positive effect, but the people who think it's negative don't see the positive. But my point is that so often, it's such a fantastic trick of Maya, that it becomes a controversy. It becomes an issue. And then the issue creates friction and fractions, and we become absorbed in enmity or just very ill feelings towards others. And so then you see that the issue, which was not that important, becomes quite heated, and sometimes offenses are made, or at least very disparaging comments are made, and attitudes towards others can become very negative. And so that's much, much worse than the actual issue. Now, I'm not saying we should avoid issues if they're important, but I'm saying we just need to be careful in how we deal with issues, because often the way we deal with it is much more problematic, or it's potentially more problematic, or it's just plain wrong. And this is very common, very common. So, Leslie has a tattoo, so I think she's bogus. So I'm not going to talk to her. I mean, that's pretty mature, isn't it? But sometimes we'll find that we, as devotees, act in such immature ways like that. It's like, you look at Leslie not according to her tattoos. You look at her heart, her devotion, and you don't allow a tattoo to get in the way because you don't believe in tattoos. But these things can go on. So I was telling devotees. Where was I telling them? We were having a class, not last night, the night before last, in somebody's home. And they're asking about fault finding and how to deal with it. And I was saying that if we see how anything like fault find or anything negative, if we see how it affects us in the movement, then we will realize that these kinds of things are holding back the work we could be doing to get to people who want Krishna consciousness. So if we just think, well, what's the best thing for bringing Krishna consciousness to others? And I would say the best thing that we can do is create unity as far as possible, even when there's disunity. So maybe I think Prabhupada wouldn't like tattoos. And maybe if somebody asked me, should you get a tattoo, I say no. But if someone already has one, I don't just avoid them or say, no, I'm not going to deal with them. I'm not going to help them. Or I'm going to tell people how bad they are. And you think, well, do devotees really do that? That's so childish. Yes, they do. It's true. So sometimes I think of getting something like a verse tattooed somewhere small. My yoga students can see, so they will ask about it. And it gives more opportunity to talk about Krishna. Yeah. I think that's a good idea, preaching, and a beautiful tattoo and a shloka. They go, what does that mean? And they always see it. Yeah, but you have to choose the right shloka. Trinadapi sunichena. Mahaprabhu says, make a garland of this shloka and put it around your neck. Yeah, so the principle is do what's favorable. Of course, someone may say, well, do you really need a tattoo to preach to people? Is that really going to make a difference? Yeah, well, maybe if it was tattooed on your forehead, people might ask about it. I'm having a battle here now with the mosquito. I've got the definitive answer on killing mosquitoes. If they're flying around, you can't kill them. But once they land and start attacking, then you can kill them, because now it's self-defense. And there'll be no sinful reaction. So this thing, no, you have to wait till they land, and then there's no sinful reaction. Okay. So now you have the definitive shastric siddhanta on killing mosquitoes. Okay. It was worth coming to this class just to get that information, wasn't it? This mosquito looks hungry. It's breakfast time. Okay. Srila Prabhupada, if Srila Prabhupada specifically said we shouldn't have them, then I would not. Yeah, I don't think he specifically said we should. So then, like I say, you have to use inductive reasoning. What are all the things he said? What was the principle? Is this within the principle? If you get a tattoo and it just puts you more in the bodily concept, what's the point? If you get a tattoo and it's it's actually something dear to you it's within your psychology. It's a devotional thing. You feel closer to Krishna. You feel it will help bring people closer to Krishna. Then you're looking at the mood, and why you're doing something is always more important than what you're doing. And so, if it's if it's ostentatious, I want to show off that I'm cool, then what's the point? Of course, as Prabhupada said, women like, tattoos. It's just like jewelry. Women like to do that. Anyway, now some people might say, well, I have these tattoos. It helps me. It helps me relate to certain kind of people, so they think I'm cool and they'll listen to me. Well, these things may be there, but I think, of course, ultimately, if we're just pure devotees, that's probably the best thing. But there may be other considerations until we reach that level. So these are all things to look at, and then you make your decision in consultation with Super Soul, or in consultation with others. Hare Krishna. Yes. Marina got her answer. She came online, and Krishna inspired me to talk about mosquitoes. Because it's not, you can kill, if someone's attacking you, you can kill and there's no sinful reaction. If they're coming with a sharp weapon, or they're coming with a weapon which can kill you, and the mosquito attacks with sharp weapons. Of course, they're not going to kill, oh, they could kill you. Depending on the mosquito, yeah. Okay, so, does anyone have any other questions? Does anyone have any answers? Now, we haven't come to the Siddhanta on tattoos. What's the Siddhanta? So Leslie's going to say, well, Mahatma Prabhu, if somebody asked you if they could get a tattoo, what would you say? And I would say, ask Leslie what she thinks. Well, you don't have a good answer for a question, just tell the person to ask somebody else. No, what I would say is, ask your guru what he thinks, because you don't want to displease your guru. So ask him what he thinks. Now, maybe your guru likes tattoos, and maybe your guru doesn't, or maybe your guru has no thoughts on tattoos. But what if you got a tattoo and then you met your guru and your guru said, why did you do that? Then you would be like, your bubble would be popped. So maybe you should ask your guru, should I get a tattoo? He said, okay, would you mind? Okay. Prabhu, on which text number are we in Jaiva Dharma? We're searching in Vedabase. So we are now, as of the next class, which is going to be on Saturday, and hopefully I can do it because we're on tour. I'm starting the tour on Friday. So my time at that time may be occupied in teaching the group. And I may not have internet access where I'm teaching them. But we are beginning the 17th chapter, the Jiva's liberation from Maya. But what the translation I'm reading may not be the translation that you will get online, but it'll be similar. But it's chapter 17 we're beginning next Saturday, if we make it next Saturday. And all I can say is just come next Saturday. Tilak. Tattoo tilaks have the same effect as the clay ones. No, because the clay is sacred. So the clay, no, because the highest form of tilak is earth from a sacred place, and that sacred earth purifies the body. So in the absence of that sacred earth, there are other kinds of tilaks, and I can't tell you because I don't remember hearing this, which means probably it's not there in Shastra. I don't ever recall reading anything in Shastras that talk about tilak, as a tattoo. I mean, I could be wrong, but generally tilak it comes from Dwarka, that Gopi Chandan is sacred. It can come from a river, the mud of a river, especially if it's Ganga, Jamuna. So there's certain kinds of, Shastra says certain kinds of tilak. I don't remember tattoo tilak being one of them, but the substance which purifies the body. which is a holy substance. Some devotees have tilak made from Radha Kund mud, and they'll mix it with Radha Kund water. But I think ultimately, really, if you want to go down to the essence, it's all about consciousness. So it's like if an action is not forbidden in Shastra, we can't find any evidence to say this is sinful or wrong, then if the motivation is coming from inspiration to please Guru and Krishna, then at least the consciousness is right. But I would say generally, if you have access, come in. It's breakfast time in Juhu. If you have access to your you can give me that juice. If you have access to a guru, Siksha guru, you can ask them. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm drinking amla juice right now. And if you've never drank amla juice, 50% of your life is wasted. More vitamin C than anything else. Anti-cancer, anti-inflammatory, boosts the the Jamuna system, and boosts the immune system. So many advantages. So every day I'm drinking amla juice. Very bitter. Very bitter. Amla with water. He put a little honey in, but the amlas they're getting in Juhu are extremely bitter. I don't think they're ripe. You have no idea how bitter this is. If you can get amla, maybe at an Indian store, you can get it dried, you can get it in powder, you can get it in Ayurvedic medicine called Chaivana Prash. It's very, very healthy. Trinadapi, what does that mean? It means you should think you're lower than a blade of grass. And you should be more tolerant than a tree. Some devotees actually tattoo that. Now, what I could do for you, Leslie, was when I go back to Mayapur, I could visit some Gaudiya Math temples and just kind of look at the brahmacharis' bodies to see if they have any tattoos. I mean, if they do, then we could say the tradition goes back at least into the time of Bhaktisiddhanta, because whatever goes on Gaudiya Math, most likely, especially if the brahmacharis are very traditional, it's not just some cool brahmachari with a tattoo, but traditional brahmachari, or maybe an older brahmachari, like 50, 60, 70. They have tattoos, then we could say it's part of their tradition. At least we may not know how bona fide it is, but at least within that tradition we can say they do it, so there must be some. And maybe that can be the definitive answer, and say, why did you get a tattoo? Because in the Gaudiya Math, the brahmacharis have tattoos. From my remembrance, I can't say one way or the other if I've seen tattoos. Amla juice, because last 2 weeks ago when I came here, a devotee was taking care of me, and he said that his mother, I think she was actually diabetic, went to a nature cure. Sushma, when you come to India, it's really important for you to come to Mumbai first and do this nature cure. He said this nature cure transformed the health of his mother. She was very weak, and I think she was even diabetic. And so one of the things that they asked of her was to take amla juice every day. Because amla, it cleanses, and it builds the immune system. It does many things. And to eat more raw food and raw juices. and said it completely transformed the health of his mother. Of course, there's a prescription of how they do that. So he made amla juice for me. So I said, all right, I'll take amla juice. And then I told my wife, and she said, oh yeah, Deepak Chopra, he's all about amla. He's like, raving about amla. It's like the latest craze, amla. But try it. It's really bitter. But you can get it in powder and mix it with something. This is fresh amla. He put honey in it, and look at my face when I eat it. That's with honey. But I was in Navi Mumbai the last week, and there they were giving me amla, which was bigger and sweeter. And even without honey, it wasn't even as bitter as this with honey. So, but I think this amla is more potent because it's more cleansing. Anyway, I've also heard that sometimes in India people just eat amla with a meal. So you can Google amla and you can see as many benefits. It's very interesting. If you Google turmeric or you Google ginger, you'll see there are hundreds of benefits that modern science has discovered from one thing. Amla is just one fruit. Ginger is one root. Turmeric is one root. It has so many benefits. It's amazing, when you think of it, of what Krishna has created medicinally. So amla, it builds the immune system. But the immune system is stronger. What happens? You fight disease, you fight infection, and your strong immune system is, the environmental factors are weakening our immune system. Radiation, those cell phone towers? Your phones? Computers that you're all looking at? Microwaves? Throw away your microwave. It's one of the most unhealthy things you could have. You don't even want to be within 20 feet of it when it's on. What to speak of eating what's cooked in it. Electromagnetic frequencies, very unhealthy for the body. It's going to be, in the future, we're going to see when our kids are older, or if you're a kid when you're older, you're going to see this is going to be probably epidemic. And it's epidemic. They're going to be epidemic because of the electromagnetic frequencies that are all around us, the cell towers everywhere. Did you know there's so many birds that are not in Vrindavan now because of the cell phone towers? Did you know that in Vrindavan, at the MVT, they used to have either hornet's nest or beehives? They don't exist anymore. One of the managers was telling me, he says, because of the cell phone towers, the radiation, they can't even live. And so we have these cell phones up against our ears. You see, on my cell phone, I have a BioPro. I'm not selling these, but maybe I should. Because it alters the electromagnetic frequency, so it's not detrimental. You can put these on your computer, put them on your refrigerators, anywhere where there's an engine, fans. This is all. It's wearing out our body. It's toxic. It's wearing down our bodies. The air is so toxic. The food now, it's just sprayed with so many toxic things. Our thoughts are toxic. Therefore, you need amla juice to fight that toxic influence. This is all wearing down our immune system, and then what happens? You're 50 years old and you're like an old man or an old lady. It shouldn't be that way because your body's just worn out. Right? Hing relieves nasal inflammation, yeah. Where do you get those amlas? You get them in India. And otherwise, probably an Indian store will sell amla candy or dried amla or amla powder or chaivana prash. So, Sushma, when you come to India, stay in Mumbai at your relative's house, go to the Nature Cure, do the Nature Cure. It'll help you so much. Become stronger. You want to live for many years and serve Krishna and serve Guru and help Prabhupada's mission. So, it's a service to Guru and Krishna to take care of your body. That's how we have to see it. It's, because otherwise we think, well, it's personal and who cares? No. but it's maintaining the vehicle. Yeah. Just show it on your cell phone. It's called BioPro. You can Google BioPro. If you're in Mayapur, you can buy it. Even cheaper. BioPro. And then you find these for your phones. You'll see, you put a BioPro and then you go talk on your phone and it doesn't heat up. It's interesting. You put them on your computer. You can wear them. Yeah, it's like, it's scary to read, but if you read about electromagnetic frequencies, first thing you'll do is you'll take your microwave from the top floor of your apartment house and you'll throw it as far as you can. It's like the worst thing you can have. Your cell phone is really bad, but if you have something to counteract it, it's not so bad. Especially where the problem is young people who are growing up with cell phones, they're frying their brains out because they're on the phone all the time. And, okay, I'm older, so I don't have a chance to use a cell phone for 50 years, like the young people are going to have a chance. So, anyway, if you want to Google electromagnetic frequency and scare yourself, then go for it, because there's a lot of evidence. And you see, you think the cell phone industry wants to allow this evidence to become public? Like, you think the cigarette industry wanted this warning that it's bad for you? Of course not. But all they try to say, well, there's no evidence, there's no real evidence. No, you just look at the research. You see, the research is there. There's plenty of evidence. They're not good for you. It's just the truth. So many things are not good for us. So, smart devotees take things which are good for them, avoid things which are bad for them. Now, here I'm in Juhu. I'm on the 4th floor. So, as Sushma knows, because she was here, I don't use the elevator. Why don't I use the elevator? Because it's stupid to use an elevator. Because you have the opportunity of walking up the stairs, getting some exercise, your heart beats a little harder, blood flows. You need that, right? Who uses the elevator? The lazy people, the fat people. They use the elevator. But walk up the stairs, it's good for you. And it doesn't waste electricity. Okay, what else do you want me to talk about now that we're off the topic? The 100 benefits of amla juice, also known as Indian gooseberry. Okay, I can tell you something. Eat simply. The best Ayurveda, and Prabhupada said this, quarter water, quarter air, half food. That means half your stomach is full with food, the other half is empty. So that means if you eat enough prasadam that when you finish you say, I am completely full, probably means you ate about twice what you should have. But if you eat till you're satisfied, and you're satisfied, but you're not full, which means you could eat more. You have capacity. That's when you should stop. That's healthy. You'll digest well. But if you eat till up here, you're going to spend all your energy digesting, and then you'll be feeling like this after you eat, and you're going to take a little nap, and you'll be sleeping more than you require. So that's a very good practice. Don't eat till you're totally full. I frustrate people. I'm the most frustrating guest people have, because they invite me to their house for prasadam and say, Prabhu, will you come to my house for prasadam? And I say, yes. And then I don't eat very much. And they're looking at me and say, like, is it not good? Did we do something wrong? I say, no. I said, I've had enough. Because most people eat way more than they need, and I try to eat what I need, which by their standards is not much. But it's healthy, and it's Krishna conscious. Okay, can we have class on Saturday at another time? Maybe. I don't know what my schedule is going to be, so I'll have to see. Popcorn in the pan, yeah. Throw away your microwave immediately. Don't even give it to somebody. It's the worst thing. You don't stand in front of that microwave, you're getting radiated. I mean, would you like to go in a microwave and get warmed up by it? What do you think that would do? It's so bad. You just go on the internet and read about it. It's so bad. People don't know. Prabhus, Matajis. If I went into your house, if I went into the average house, maybe not Leslie's house, but maybe, because I know Leslie, but I don't know all of you, but so well. But I know I've been to Shushma's house. So I've been to Pallavi's house. Most of what you have in your house, if not 100% of it, is bad for you. Your shampoos, full of junk. I just talked to a devotee. I said, "What do you do?" He goes, "I work for a chemical engineering company." I go, "What do you make?" He said, "We make hair oil." I go, What is hair oil made from?" He said, "It's made from crude oil." You know crude oil, what you make gasoline from? He said, "That's what the hair oil is made from." Why don't you just put gasoline on your hair? Keep away the lice also. Most of what you have in your house, for some of you, 100% of your detergents, your soaps, your shaving creams, your makeup, your face creams, all have toxic substances. Now, any toxic substance that you put on your body, guess what happens? From the outside, it goes on the inside. You're digesting it. So, what they say is, don't put anything on your body that you wouldn't put inside your mouth and eat, because it's going to go inside. That's why they have health food stores. That's why they have non-toxic, biodegradable soaps, detergents, toothpaste, this, that, and the next thing. Because all this other stuff has poison in it. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to inform you of this wonderful substance they put in toothpaste to fight decay. What is that called? Fluoride. Fluoride is a toxic substance, which they didn't know what to do with because it would pollute the earth. But they found in minute quantities, temporarily, it would help fight decay, but ultimately it decay your whole mouth and your whole body and your whole life, because it is rat poison. That's how you kill rats, with fluoride. Maybe you didn't know that. Maybe the FDA knows it and they don't want to tell you. Maybe they've been bamboozled and they don't know it. If you just do a little homework, you'll start reading the labels of everything in your house, and you'll need a big trash can to throw it all out, because it's, for most of you, if you don't know all this, most, if not everything in your house is toxic. And then we wonder why. Why did so-and-so get cancer? He was so young. Radiation, toxic substance, pesticides on the food, poor diet, no exercise. You guys are sitting, who work as computer programmers, you're sitting in front of a computer all day. You should get the BioPro stuff and put it on your computers. This is radiation. It's not healthy. We live in a society, we've created such a bad situation in this society. In Prabhupada's last days, he said, "Are you satisfied?" He said, "No, there's one thing I wanted to do." He said, "I wanted to go to Gita Nagari, and I wanted to sit down and show you how to live off the land." That was Prabhupada's desire. So, we become expert at creating a situation where we're mentally disturbed and physically disturbed. Isn't it? And you have to spend all your money to be healthy, because organic food is expensive, and pure items are more expensive than the impure, because there's more of a demand for the impure. And capitalism, the bottom line in capitalism is not the welfare of the citizen. The bottom line of capitalism is the bank balance of the company. That's how their decisions are made. That's what capitalism is, a form of government. It's a form of, it's a kind of dictatorship where few people decide the products that others are going to buy. And for most capitalistic organizations, the bottom line is money. It's not quality, it's not health, it's not prosperity, longevity, social responsibility, ecological responsibility. So we have to be careful. Right? Is that correct? You have to be careful. So, the conclusion is, all of you, pack your bags, move out to the country, grow your own food, get your cows, build a little mud hut, be happy. Hare Krishna. Okay. Anything else? Delicious. Okay, so I think we're going to end class here. And we'll keep you posted on next Saturday. We kind of have to see how it goes. Because the tour starts on Friday, and then I'm not sure what our schedule is on Saturday. But Pallavi, you can always call me in India if you don't see me, or just to double check if I haven't informed you. Because I may not know until 6:30 in the evening on Saturday. I may not know, which is the time I broadcast, just depending on what's going on. So you may just have to call me, or assume if you don't see me by 10 to 20 to 7, or whatever time it is yours, 10 minutes or 15 minutes after the starting time, that I didn't make it. Yes. So I'm here in Mumbai now. And so, Sushma, when you come back to India, come to Mumbai and get healthy. Because Sushma, I'm older than you, so you should be more energetic than me and stronger. So I want you to become stronger than me, healthier than me, more energetic. And then you can go around Vrindavan, and you can clean up Vrindavan. You'll have so much energy. And you can go around painting buildings and cleaning streets, and, going all day and not getting sick in Vrindavan. Right? And same thing for Pallavi. She's even younger. I think I can outperform Pallavi also. Right? There's a disease in India. You know what it is? All the men have big fat bellies. The richer they are, the bigger the belly, right? There's a belly disease in India, right? Because they eat too much. And Prabhupada would see people running on the beach. He'd say, yeah, I'm there. He said, this is foolish. They eat too much and then they go to run it off. Yeah, asana and pranayama, yeah. Definitely. So Sushma's goal and Pallavi's goal is to become super healthy, super energetic, so they can do more, sleep less, and have more Shakti, which is possible. It just requires a few changes. A little pranayama, a little asana. Okay. I mean, I travel a lot, and I stay in a lot of devotees' homes. And I got to this point where I was thinking, I just need to write a newsletter and tell devotees that everything in their home is killing them, because they don't realize it. But I never did, because my newsletters are Krishna conscious. They're not on that level. But When you take the time to just research, what is going into your shampoos, your soaps, your laundry detergents, and it's all just being absorbed through your mouth, through your skin, or you're wearing it and the contaminants are going, dry cleaning, horribly polluting, and then you put that on your body. The problem is if you start researching it, you realize the contamination is everywhere, and you begin to understand why people are so ill, because it's pervasive, and if you don't know it, then you just become a victim of it. I go to people's homes, they always ask me, do you want some milk? And I say, first thing I say is, do you know the cow? Because if you don't know the cow, I don't want the milk, because I don't know where it comes from. And then this devotee said, yeah, in India they put detergent in the milk. I go, great, just what I need in my milk, detergent. I go, why? He said, because it makes it foam. If it foams, you think it's good. So fortunately, when I was in Bangalore, the devotee said, yeah, we have a cow, our neighbor has a cow, so we got milk. And normally I can't digest milk, but milk from a purebred cow, I had no problem digesting. So that's real milk. This other stuff is not milk. They call it, looks like milk, smells like milk, tastes like milk. But you've got a cow that's been bred to be something other than a cow, and then you drink the milk and you get allergic, you can't digest it. That's not milk. So, yeah. Prabhupada said, first become conscious, then become Krishna conscious. Now, I don't want to fault anybody, but I make an observation, and this is not to be critical at all. But when Indians come to America, America is considered a better country than India. So Indians tend to do things as Americans do, and I think they tend not to question products because they assume this is America, and so the products should be good or even better than India. Maybe they would question products in India, say, oh yeah, the hing has sawdust in it, you don't want to buy this or that. But it's not true in America. The products are very contaminated. And so you need to be aware of that. Okay? Here's to your health, Prabhus, Matajis. And we will see you. Okay, what am I having for breakfast? Okay, I'm having chickus, figs, and grapes. That's all you're going to eat. That's all. Prabhu, you need to eat more. No, I don't need to eat more. I'll eat more for lunch. Breakfast means you're breaking a fast. When you break a fast, you should eat a little bit. Right? Indian breakfasts tend to be big. You should eat a little bit when you break a fast. Then you, according to Ayurveda, you eat your main meal at noon. That's when your digestion, 1 o'clock, your digestion is strong. So you eat a little bit so you're hungry at noon. You don't eat a lot at night. So many people have bad habits. They eat a lot for breakfast, a lot for lunch, and a lot for dinner. No chapati with dal and honey. Well, it's too much trouble to get them to make chapatis. And the weather's warm here, so I just have fruit. Sadhu, be a sadhu, just eat fruit. Yeah. First become conscious, then become Krishna conscious. Sometimes devotees say, Prabhu, you're so thin, how can I lose weight? I go, okay, just hang out with me, and whatever I eat, you eat that. When I stop eating, you stop. And I can guarantee you, most of those devotees wouldn't be able to do it, because I would stop too soon for them. So Prabhupada was talking with his sister. No, Prabhupada was talking with one of his disciples, and his sister was previously had told Prabhupada, saying, Prabhupada, I'm not eating much, but I'm getting fat. And Prabhupada was joking with his servant. He said, have you ever seen anybody? They don't eat much and they're getting fatter. And they were just laughing and joking. She says she's not eating much, but she's getting fatter. Have you seen anybody? They eat a little bit and they keep getting fatter. I haven't seen. You eat a little bit, you get thinner. She says she's getting fatter. So he would joke like that. Hare Krishna. Okay. The health class is over. And My son barely eats, yeah. You know, before I was a devotee, cannot not imagine how little I ate. My parents used to have to force me to eat. I'd sit, and no, I don't want to eat. I don't know what it was. I was either sick or I was a yogi in my last life. Eating was like not a priority at all. What a blessing, huh? But then I became a devotee and I started eating this nice prasad. So much nice prasadam. More and more and more and more. Anyway, in Prabhupada's books, he talks about voracious eating in the name of eating Mahaprasad, and he calls that sense gratification. So just because it's prasadam doesn't mean we can't misunderstand how to use it, and it can't be sense gratification. Often it is. Overeating in the name of the Mahaprasad. Not good. Right? We're all supposed to be yogis, right, Leslie? So, yogi means controlled. Prabhupada said, take prasad to your satisfaction. But overeating is not satisfaction, in my book. It's gluttony. What do they say? Your food is your medicine? Your kitchen is your medicine cabinet? Okay. No mangoes. Mangoes are just starting to come now. But I have chiku and figs, so you don't want to eat too many different fruits at once. I'll check out the mangoes tomorrow. Can you put sugar in your drink? If you want to drain the calcium out of your bones, just take a lot of sugar. You know, they make sugar with bleach, white sugar. There's bleach in it. So I'm taking this with honey, but you want to avoid too much sugar because it actually leaches the calcium out of your bones, as far as I understand. And then, you know, arthritis, osteoporosis, and all these wonderful diseases. Pallavi and Shushma, have you noticed that men and women in India, over the age of 50, 55, many of them, when they walk like this. They don't walk like this. They walk. And in America, you don't see that as much, or very rarely. Have you noticed that? It's so common. I don't know what it is, what the diet is, what's going on. But in India, people, in India, you'll see many people over 50, 55, 60, and they're walking kind of like this. They're not walking normally. You might see that in America, but it's not common. But India is very common. And all the time, every day I see it. Everywhere I go, I see older people. They're walking. How do I explain it? They're walking like this. There's something wrong. Arthritis, osteoporosis, something in the diet, in the living, in the water, in the pen, something. Sweet for Lord Jagannath. Well, Krishna likes sugar. You just don't eat a lot of sugar yourself. Or you can use other sweeteners. What's my favorite sweetener? There's this one sweetener I forgot that I used in America, and I completely forgot what it was. Oh yeah, xylitol. Comes from a tree. It's antibacterial. It tastes just like sugar. And diabetics can even take it, as far as I know. You can check. And it doesn't have any of the effects of sugar, even though it's sweet. Organic sugar you can use, raw honey. This xylitol is really good. Stevia is good, but stevia is from the leaf, but it has a bad taste. The xylitol is used in mouthwash. It's antibacterial. It's amazing stuff. You can Google it. It's spelled, I think it's spelled X-Y. You know how to spell it, Leslie? No, XY something. Xylitol, maybe that's right. You know, so we don't want to be fanatics, but it's a good alternative. And a lot of my godbrothers who ate a lot of prasadam in their earlier days, now they're in very simple diets and raw food diets and this and that. So it's just they had to compensate it, for improper eating, and they say they're much healthier, they're more energetic. Yeah, you can make prasad with xylitol, but I don't know if it's good for baking. I don't think it works the same as sugar for baking. But you also have maple syrup and that cactus syrup. Krishna likes sugar, but if you're worshiping deities in your home, then you can adjust how you cook to make it more suitable to your needs. Generally in temples, certain preparations are traditionally made with sugar. If you don't use sugar, it doesn't come out right. So there's a little higher standards there, but healthy is mode of goodness. So, as far as we can, we want to cook healthy. Stevia. I don't know about Truvia. Maybe it's a brand of stevia. Agave, yeah, agave. Maybe you don't want to take too many sweeteners, too much sweets anyway, no matter even if it's healthy. Don't like sweet, that's good. But you can't get Brahmin initiation if you don't like sweets. Us Brahmins like sweets. That was a joke. Okay, so I need to go. I'm going to have breakfast, take darshan, chant some rounds, meet some people, and then can't have most of the fruits. Why? Because you're diabetic? Yeah. That's why you need to do the nature cure. It might actually make a tremendous difference. But the xylitol, you may be able to take that. Anyway, okay. Now, all you great yogis out there, I beg your leave. I beg to take your leave at this point. And I hope to see Sushma and Pallavi super healthy next week, ready to run marathons, take over the world, getting up early, jumping out of bed, full of energy, yes. If you don't eat a lot at night and you eat a little less in the day, you don't have to sleep as much. It's much easier to get up in the morning. So that's a big advantage of controlling your diet. Okay. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you for coming, and we will see you next week, hopefully. Can't guarantee, but we will try. Hari Hari Bol. Hare Krishna.